Wait.
All right, how's everybody doing? This is the Cheech and Manny Music Podcast, and today we have a great show for you. We're going to be doing Rush again, Farewell to Kings, analyzing the album. Before I start, I'd just like to say thank you for everyone who's subscribing and liking and writing comments. Please write more comments. And I just thought of something. Well, let me introduce Manny, my co-host.
Cheech, thanks, man. And hope everything's good, brother, on your end.
Everything is going good. Two things. Just a quick shout out to my best friend Danny Brown, who I keep bringing up. He bought me a Farewell to Kings in 1987. He bought me the
Wow.
tape. He went on vacation somewhere and he's like, "I got a present for you," and that's how I really got into it. And Joe Silkman brought up a good thing to me today. He said that maybe we should, talk about the band Primus. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I'll be honest with you, I've heard of them, but
Great band.
wow,
They're,
Primus.
they kind of came up in the grunge era, like in the '90s, and they weren't grunge or nothing, but they
Oh
kind
wow.
of were like Frank Zappa meets, they were proggy.
Wow.
Les Claypool is this crazy bass player. But anyway, they're huge Rush fans. I actually seen them open up for Rush on one of those tours, and they were
Wow.
friends with Getty. And last summer, I think Joe said he saw them. They did the Farewell to Kings, the whole thing, as a tribute to
Really?
Rush. Yeah, it's on YouTube if our viewers want to check it out.
Wow.
So there's a link.
And this band is Primus.
Primus, Les Claypool is the leader.
I'm
He's
gonna have to check them out.
interesting singer, like a Zappa kind of singer, but I mean his bass playing is ridiculous. And the guy's played with everybody, you know. He played on a Government Mule tribute album. He can do anything. He's a super
Wow.
talented guy. Really amazing.
Wow.
So
Nice
check.
recommendation from Joe Silkman. That's good.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks,
gonna check
Joe.
them out. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So where do you want to take it from? You want to take the lead on the Farewell to Kings? We ended it with them, doing a successful live album,
Yep.
and they put that out to rethink what they need to do to get into the music industry, and be successful. And now I think most of the songs on the Farewell to Kings album, we'll talk about the music, but I'm talking about the lyrics, have to do with the music industry because they've conquered the music record company. They won. They beat that. They
They
beat that
did.
beast.
They did.
They beat that Miss Doubtfire, and
Yeah.
now now they're
No,
ready
no,
to take
they effectively, beat the priests of the Temple of Syrinx, which
exactly.
we're on our way to do it. We're getting there, but
We're getting there, yeah.
the priests that
So
we know, for the audience out there, the priests that we know, man, they're rough, they're tough.
tough and rough, and we will be like Rush. Rush conquered
Yep.
the record label. Now they're ready to take on the music industry, which is harder than any record label because you got the critics, you got the fans,
Yep.
you got to have the right material.
Yeah.
So let me just talk a little bit about what happens to Rush now. They reinvent themselves. They create an orchestra. They can no longer be a three-piece bass, guitar, and drums.
Yeah.
They want to be like their hero, Genesis. And yes, this is something interesting. They talked about adding a fourth member at one time.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
You know, that would have been weird, but I'm glad they didn't. I think it would have taken away, maybe been too keyboardy. So I'm just going to give a rundown of what they did.
Yeah.
So to beef up the band's sound, Neil brought in all kinds of like classical percussion types of things.
Yeah. His drum kit grew.
Oh, his drum kit was like
His drum. I mean, it was
a
already big,
spaceship.
but by this point, he's becoming a
It,
true
it,
percussionist.
it's funny if you look at his drum kit and the video from Fly By Night. If you ever seen that video, like it's an
Mhm.
actual video. I don't know if it's from was a promotional thing. It's a tiny drum kit. It's not that
Yeah.
big. And
Yeah.
now on Farewell to Kings, He brings in tubular bells, chimes,
Hmm.
percussions, wood blocks, that kind of sound that they use on Xanadu,
Yeah.
uh, double bass, all kinds of crazy percussions. Getty, he goes beyond that. He goes completely nuts, and he brings in a mini Moog,
Yeah.
which I'm going to talk about. He brings in a Moog synthesizer, a double neck guitar and bass. So he plays guitar on
Amazing.
Xanadu, and he plays bass, and like a homage to Jimmy Page. And he brings in one of my favorite sounds, and I had the opportunity to play them, the Moog Taurus pedal. Now, I'll go back to the Mini Moog. I actually recorded years ago on a Mini Moog in the studio. The Mini Moog, the famous sound is Tom Sawyer. And
Mm.
we talked about this earlier. Keith Emerson, he innovated the Moog with Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Yeah.
He had every kind of Moog. He looked like an old school operator, plugging stuff in. Have you ever
Yeah.
seen those pictures of him? And he got, he's the guy that really he innovated it. And the Moog got popular in the '60s. And when I was in college at the Westchester Conservatory of Music, I had to analyze Bach suites and sonnets played on a mini Moog, and it
Mm.
sounded really sick. Mini Moog is single notes; you can't play chords on it.
Right.
Um, So, in the Moog Taurus pedals, for those of you that don't know, they're basically foot pedals. So you step on a little pedal and it creates a chord. Great example of that is Spirit of the Radio, when Getty's playing the bass
Yeah.
and you hear these like keyboard sounds in the back, and also on Free Will. You don't hear him a lot on, for some reason, I don't hear him a lot on Farewell to Kings. Alex brought in different kinds of amps. I think Alex fine tuned his guitar sound,
Yeah.
bringing in classical guitars, chorus effects, and got a different tone on A Farewell to Kings. It's
Yeah.
not as dirty; it's a little cleaner.
It's cleaned.
So, just to go back, Ray Daniels starts Anthem Records on Polydor. Um, so Polydor gives them their record distribution. They got like a 5 album deal up till I think maybe like the Tom Sawyer era.
Yeah.
And there's also another band on Anthem called Max Webster, who I did see open for Rush, and check him out, another Canadian guy. And that leads up to the recording studio, and Terry Brown was the engineer again. Hugh Sims
Mhm.
did the album cover. You want to talk a little bit about the studio?
Yeah, so this is interesting. The studio, which it was Terry Brown, and again, we cannot overlook Terry Brown's
No, no, no.
importance because if anything, he could be the fourth member in
I
a
think he
way,
is.
right?
Yeah,
Especially
yeah.
during this time of Rush. So he discovered Rockville Studios in Monmouthshire, Wales, right? So they went to record in
Yeah.
England. And what's really
Hmm.
interesting is that this studio was where Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer recorded some of their hit albums, which
Yeah.
can't overlook that because again, this album was definitely I would say it's pushing them in a direction of like Yes and like Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And like you said, they
Oh,
were
definitely.
introducing
Yeah.
it's interesting because yeah, Geddy Lee added the Rickenbacker 480 double neck bass, which
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
anyone's ever seen him play this, it's the most coolest thing ever.
Insane.
He's on
He
another
uses it on exit stage left. Yeah. You can see it there. You know,
it's kind of similar to
I
like Jimmy
remember as a
Page
kid.
doing the double neck Gibson guitar, which again these
Yep.
musicians they're advancing and and yeah, they're at the
And,
studio. And what I will say
yep.
is that Farewell to Kings, right? It's developing Rush's sound.
Yep.
And they're like you said, I love how you said like it's more orchestra. They're adding, and what's really something I found that was
Yeah.
really interesting was that well, first I would say this album is definitely pivotal in like the
Oh
band's
yeah.
discography.
It's because it's the brand new Rush.
Yeah,
It's like
yep, yep,
it's the end of an era. 2112's over. Guitar, bass, and drums. It's
yep,
a simple kind of sound.
Yep.
Now it's an orchestra, you
Yeah.
know.
Complex
And
also
there's
on the time signatures. They were getting more. This is the
oh yeah,
key
yeah,
time signatures and all that. Like what they're known for. For anyone that's a Rush fan like us, they love the
yeah,
time signatures, especially the weird
yeah.
ones.
And if you don't know what that means, you know,
I was gonna say,
most rock,
explain
yeah,
what.
most rock music is like AC/DC 4/4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Rush would take different they call them odd meters, and they would be 7/8, 9/8. You get into 15/8, or they would add to 4/4. They would add like 6/4, 7/4. So it's like just adding different rhythm placements. It's actually mathematics, you know,
I would say
how you
it's
feel it and
close
stuff.
to. I could be wrong, but kind of comparing it to geometry. Like
Yeah, yeah.
you need to
You
know.
know, you need to know, like, you know, you have 1, 2, like 1, 2, 3, 4. That's your standard rock thing. Then you have 6/8, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like a 50s kind of feel. Then you have 7/8, and a great example of that is subdivisions like um 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, dun 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 dun
Right,
dun. So just a little quick about what that is. And believe me, I've been in bands where we would go from 7/8
right.
to 9/8 to 4/8, and you got to be on your friggin' game. You got to
I
stay
was gonna
so
say
focused.
no, it adds complexity, and I will say with the progressive rock bands, like they were on these time signatures, and
Yes.
definitely you can hear how complex their sound is. Like if you listen to also any albums by Yes, they love to do complex time
Oh
signatures,
yeah, yeah,
and you know if like playing like these, you gotta be on your game.
yeah. Great example. Two Rush songs to look for odd time signatures. Natural Science. They go into this crazy time
You
signature.
hear it, yeah, I love it. Yeah,
I think it's 7/8, and so what did I say? Was it subdivisions? Yeah, subdivisions. Yeah,
subdivisions.
subdivisions.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, one
So
more thing to add as well about
yeah,
before we delve into Farewell to Kings is that they and if we talked about this album also well going back to the live album, uh it was the close of the old kind of like simple, you know,
yeah,
rock a
yeah.
band, so drums, bass and guitar, and adding
Yeah, like
complexity
the
to it.
formula that like Cream had, the
Yeah,
power trio,
yeah,
Mountain and
exactly.
Cream, you
Exactly,
know.
this is really interesting, something I discovered that the trio looked back on 2112 and felt that their sound was too confined. So this
Yeah.
is, it's interesting, right? So they're expanding their palette, and then out comes
Hmm.
Farewell to Kings, which again, this
Yeah.
album is transitional, it's pivotal, it's pushing to direction of, these sounds that they're exploring, they're gonna end up perfecting on
Oh
future
yeah,
albums.
yeah,
And
yeah.
released in
And the key
1977.
1977. The key to we talked about the music part of it, the odd signatures, acoustic guitars, all the crazy stuff,
Yeah,
the instrumentation. The lyrics are metaphors, and we discussed this earlier, for so many things in the music industry about Rush up
yeah.
against the unknown. That's like the
That's a
key.
that's a good way of
You
putting
know,
it. Yeah.
they're up against the unknown because they went from playing bars not that long ago in 1973, 74
Yeah, yeah.
to going to the big time. Do you imagine that in a 4-year period?
I was gonna say
Being,
that's no, that's such a good way of putting it because yeah, dude, they were probably going around in vans, going
yeah,
to, like you guys do, right? Like,
yeah, 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 yeah,
so now going from this to beating the record industry,
yeah,
forming their own label, being at the center of attention in rock music and the pop charts, right? Because
yeah,
we're gonna discover Closer to the Heart was kind of like a pop hit.
yeah.
Um,
Radio friendly
but
hit.
prior to that, right, in 2012 was such a huge success. So
Yeah,
now they're confronting the unknown, right? So I think you're
yeah.
right. The lyrics
That's the
speak
key.
to that.
And I think this album, it's like you said, it was just so important
Yep.
to be made.
You know what, Cheech, I
Um,
got a confession to make. I've always kind of, I think we were mentioning this prior to recording that um I've always passed by this album, really not thinking much of
uh,
it, but I've been binge listening to it, in preparation for this episode, and I have to say, probably new favorite. Rush has so many great albums. I don't even know which one to put on top, but this one has jumped up.
Oh,
Just
oh yeah. I know it's amazing. And imagine like going back to how they must have felt like, going back to the first album, opening up for Manfred Mann, and now a key thing is they're headliners now. Now they're
yeah,
selling out.
yeah,
Not Madison Square Garden yet, but they're selling out pretty big theaters, 2,000, 3,000 seaters,
yeah.
still doing opening acts. They did shows with UFO.
I was gonna say
Um,
that's the famous.
that was one of the famous tours, and they were always playing, pranks on each other. And I think Pete Way called Geddy Lee Glee or something, and he would go around the stage because Rush got into not only like the show. They had lights and fog machines, and there was some funny things where Pete Way, probably drunk out of his mind, crawling around the stage, pulling on the what are they called, kimonos, the Japanese things that they wore.
Well, it's funny because they were following, and again, they must have been inspired by like bands like Genesis and Yes, where they would come out
Yeah,
in these outfits, like kind of like
yeah,
medieval, like something that you would find like at a medieval fair.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
UFO were like ripping them apart. And you mentioned something funny with the 2112 like album at the back cover.
yeah,
You saw
yeah.
these three strange looking dudes like
I
just
was 6 years old. Like Kiss looked cool to me, because it was like Halloween. And then I'm seeing these guys in like
it,
these dresses, kimonos,
it,
and I think Getty had makeup on 2112.
dude,
And
it
it,
looks like yeah, it looks like they.
yeah,
I'll be honest with you, if that was if like let's say that was the back cover of like an ABBA album or something, I'd be like, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
they look, but yeah, and again, speaking about the transitional part, they'll end up abandoning, I think, a lot of that change. I don't know if you would agree,
Oh
like
yeah,
the outfits, the you
oh
know,
yeah. That was what was going on at that time.
yeah.
If you look at the way Yes looked, they all dressed crazy. Have you ever
Genesis,
seen?
famously.
Oh yes,
You know what's
the
funny? Just a little side note with Genesis, Peter Gabriel introduced that kind of like androgyny, theatricality a
yeah,
little bit. And it's funny, the band members of Genesis didn't know what to make of it. They didn't like it, but
right,
it was kind of like you said, it was of the time. I think also by
yeah.
David Bowie as well. Um, yes, if you look at any old performances
Yeah.
from like Yes, you see them.
The, the worst dress I think ever, and I know Joe Silkman and I talked about this, is John
Oh,
Paul Jones, and the song remains the same. I
oh
don't know
gosh,
what the fuck he was going for. The
that
greatest
that
bass player of all time,
that
one next to
that
Getty.
is that is
He's
true.
got like
Oh
ornaments. He looks
gosh.
like a Christmas tree. He's got ornaments hanging off of him.
Oh gosh,
He's got the
that's actually true.
Buster Brown haircut.
And it's
Jimmy Page looked cool as shit. Jimmy Page looked so fucking
I was gonna
badass.
say like his outfit is definitely out there, but he
Yeah,
looked just like a rock star. I feel like it was getting
yeah,
defined. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
What's
yeah,
funny, as a side note with the band Queen, if you look at like old Queen, they look a little
yeah,
weird too. Like Freddie Mercury was like wearing
yeah.
like leotards and like looking very strange. Like
It
again,
was strange.
like looking like at
Everybody
a
was
medieval fair or something. I'm just,
yeah, probably from like 76 till about 78. That was the thing. And could you imagine, like, I'm pretty sure Rush opened for UFO because UFO was massive at that time.
they did,
Uh,
yeah.
and imagine seeing that Rush and UFO. Like,
That's
what a
incredible.
and those of you who
That's
don't know
incredible.
UFO, Michael Schenker on guitar, um, uh, Phil Mogg on vocals, and Pete Way, who was a fantastic bass player. Steve Harris's number one influence is Pete Way, and he helped Maiden. He helped discover Maiden.
Dude, I was gonna say I listened to some UFO albums like a few weeks ago. Oh my goodness, these albums are fantastic. I wouldn't even know how to categorize them or
It's like Kiss meets heavy metal. A great example is
yeah,
like Lights Out in London. That's like
yeah.
one of the greatest songs ever, for heavy metal. They were the predecessors to metal, like
Well,
we
I was
talked
gonna
about them.
say 80s metal. Like I was gonna say like their
Oh
sound
yeah.
like, I hear Sammy Hagar. I hear like the like Def Leppard probably was closely listening and like they had
Oh
that
yeah.
sound. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
And
Michael Schenker was like a neoclassical player. He
mm,
had that. He was in the Scorpions like on one album when he was 15. His brother's Rudy Schenker, who was in the Scorpions, and he just had that flying V, crazy fast sweeps. Randy Rhodes definitely heavily influenced by my
Right. No,
band.
and you mentioned
I,
Scorpions. That's a it reminds me of like like these bands, these early prototypes, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
they were
definitely.
awesome. Recommend UFO. Like
Oh
amazing.
yeah, definitely check out UFO. Phenomenal band. Uh,
But Cheech, I guess
influence.
let's dive into some of the songs.
Yeah, this
I
is
guess
gonna get heavy.
starting off with like a farewell to Kings, right? Um,
Yes.
what do you think? Your take on that? It's a 5 minute opener. First of all,
Yeah.
fantastic. Starts out
Ex-
acoustically.
yeah.
Talk
And
about the new sound.
Alex uses his classical guitar chops. That he learned, and you don't hear that a lot. You don't hear a lot of acoustic stuff later on. They kind of get away from it.
Yeah.
First,
Yep. Yep.
Caress of Steel, it's in there. It's in 2112, but it's a great opener. It sets you up for that. It's like Shakespeare, medieval, going into Renaissance fair kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And my take on the song is basically, from my research and my opinion, a disconnect from the world, the fleeting nature of humanity, um, and the achievement and the decline in the fall of empires
Yeah.
because of one person, the king, uh, the king who let the authority go to his head and let the people down.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know,
And that's a
those,
common pattern throughout human history.
yeah,
And that's why,
it,
and I was telling you with the album A Farewell to Kings, I couldn't tell if they were being nostalgic for that, what exactly like if they were being cynical about like, you know, monarchy
well,
and kings and queens and
yeah, it's hard. It's a hard thing. Like I think they're basically the people want to get rid of the king. You see the
yeah,
puppet king is a
Puppet
puppet
King. Yep.
king,
Which is also
on
I
the
think
cover.
talking about the album cover, it
Yeah,
shows sort of like a Puppet King like behind him ruins, like it's just
yeah. And it's basically the king, and I love that quote, let the authority, the power go to his head.
yeah.
And that can apply in life to so many people, you know,
Well, the priests that
and,
we know,
and the power
dude.
to let things go to their head. The record industry, like on Wall Street, these kinds of things, the medical field, these powerful politics. I won't even. We
Well,
won't go to
while
politics,
you're
but
saying, well, while you're saying there, one of my favorite lyrics of the song is cities full of hatred, fear and lies, withered hearts, and cruel, tormented eyes, scheming demons, dressed in kingly guise, beating down the
yeah,
multitude and scoffing at the wise. Doesn't that sound like a certain place? A certain,
it does. It does.
you know?
And
So no,
when
but yeah, you're right. I love that. The
and
puppet.
then when you were saying that, I'm thinking of the bass line. So the bass line going counterpoint to
Yeah.
that particular lyric you sang is fucking genius.
Oh,
So,
I was gonna say, and it's a shame I can't put a sample of the music. While you're hearing these lyrics, the music is so
oh
good.
my God.
Oh gosh, like
And
after the
and
acoustic,
my favorite part of it is the guitar solo.
yeah,
They're jamming in it. It builds up to like a cool jam, and at the end, Getty and Neil are going insane underneath this ripping guitar solo.
I was gonna
Fucking
say probably
phenomenal.
Alex Lifeson's like work on it is so underrated.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah.
not a lot of people talk about his guitar work on this song, and it's
No.
probably up there. One of the
Oh,
best opener
totally is.
songs. And yeah, and I love your take on it. I agree. I think it definitely it's making commentary on like, puppet, kings, puppet leaders,
Yep.
people
And
that
then the disconnection, the king is disconnected from the people, and the people are the most important.
yeah.
Without his people, he doesn't have anything. You got to have the people like you, and that could go in the world we live in today with politics, and I don't want to go there, but it's still the same kind of thing, you
Yeah.
know. So I would say disconnection, being disconnected from the king. We all know, I love that line, scheming demons. They're everywhere in the
I love
world
that.
today.
Scheming demons dressed in kingly guys. Like, dude, how many people do we know? Like, I don't.
it's crazy. The world
It's
is full of that. You know, the internet, everywhere. You know,
well, and
politicians.
something close to home as an inside joke, Mrs. Doubtfire, um,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
all up and mighty and scoffing at the wise, right? And I'm just like, and again, what was really interesting is Rush's take on this, and I think, and again, I love your take on it, and I think at the end,
Thank you.
it's sort of like a light little sequel to 2112 of like, you got to be careful with this,
Yeah.
you got to look within independence and break free from this, if everyone conforms to the puppet king, like I feel like you need to be the one to break it and
Oh yeah. I agree.
figure,
Definitely.
don't look to the puppet king, look within. And I feel like that's always a theme with Rush,
Hmm. And the king also could be the record industry. I think
which is the
that's
other
the
layer to it, right?
yeah, that's the
And
layer.
Cheech, how fitting it's a farewell to kings, right? A farewell to the record industry. Like, we're
Yeah,
not.
or fuck the record industry. Fuck you, Rolling Stone. You know, and fuck you, critics who say I sound like a cat going through a blender. Okay, so
Next
the next
one,
the
Xanadu.
next one, oh, you want to do Xanadu? Okay. I
Well,
had Cinderella.
I'm going in order. So this would be,
Okay.
if we had the record, this would be side one. So side
Yeah.
one begins with a farewell to kings, and then it leads into the mini epic 11-minute Xanadu.
Yes. So Xanadu is, I think people need to read this poem and before they listen to this. Samuel Taylor Coleridge
Yeah,
wrote this. He also wrote Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, and Steve Harris put the music to that for Iron Maiden. So Neil takes Xanadu, and the poem is called the Kubla Khan.
Kuba Klan.
So
Yeah,
the Mongol the Mongol Emperor Kubla Khan wants a palace built in paradise.
yeah, yeah.
And it's his quest for the perfect paradise. It's a symbol of creativity, vision, and ambition.
Yep.
That's what I get out of it. And vision from an artist is the same thing in the struggles to bring that vision to life. So there's kind of that little connection.
Yeah.
So I think basically taking a great poem, putting it to 11 minutes worth of music.
I was gonna say for
And,
our audience, if even if you don't like poetry, read Kubla Khan because
oh yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I was reading and first of all, Coleridge in the poetry world is, you know,
Oh,
he,
massive.
he's massive. So just the
Yeah.
fact that this rock band is taking inspiration from this like 18th century poem, I'm just like, what
That
the
I don't think anybody did that. Honestly, I don't
no,
think even Emerson, Lake and Palmer did things with art, pictures at an exposition and stuff like that. But I don't think anyone took actual poetry and put
no,
it to rock music. So they're innovators on that. And I would basically say it's a symbol for paradise,
yeah,
perfection. The emperor wanted to build that palace. So that's like just basically poetry. I think I would get out of this song. You know, the creative vision and ambition. To repeat it again, the vision of an artist to his struggles to bring a vision to life. I don't
right.
know if that makes sense. So that's basically Xanadu. Would you agree? You have anything to add to
No, I
Xanadu?
would say 100%. It's a very mythic song. So
Oh
that's,
yeah,
and I was mentioning this point that this album is the perfection of Caress of Steel,
yeah,
where they introduce like very kind of like symbolic mythic themes, and it's kind of hard
yeah,
to penetrate. But
yeah,
if you get like, let's say you didn't know anything about the background of Xanadu, any person would listen to this song and be like, "What the hell are they talking about?" Like,
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
feel like
yeah.
UFO made fun of this too, where like drink the milk, I dine on honeydew. Like what?
I break my fast on honeydew. Drink the milk of paradise.
Like they were grilling them. I remember from the documentary, like they,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, but the thing is, like you said, like this is a poetic, mythic song, and it's
yeah,
describing right the human kind of like goal or need of establishing paradise, finding paradise, or and in this case, it's somebody. you know, trying to locate this place called Xanadu.
Exactly.
And he
Exactly.
claims, and I love the final line where he says, "For I have dined on honeydew and drunk the milk of paradise," right? And it's
Hmm.
kind of similar to like the Old Testament idea of the land of milk and honey, right? You
Exactly.
can go
Yeah.
through many, and that's just the lyrical side. The
Yeah.
music is so
Oh,
amazing. Like I'm telling you,
the bass line and the drums, the fills that they do together are insane. The rhythm section on this album, it might be one of the best Rush rhythm sections,
it's,
like rhythm section albums.
and I'll be honest with
All
you,
the
it's
great stuff.
no, and it's an 11-minute song, but dude,
Yeah,
the way they're playing, it doesn't even feel like 11 minutes. It's
and the atmosphere, atmospheric.
very
Like,
cinematic.
there's chimes. Alex starts doing those swells on the guitar. If anybody doesn't know what guitar swells are, it's when you hold the note with your left hand and then you play with the volume and you make it go up and down. And that's a key sound to that song. That's genius, you
Well,
know?
no, that's actually a great point. And just like I mentioned before, I've been binge listening, and this song has been on repeat. It's like my new
Oh yeah.
favorite Rush song. Like
Oh
honestly,
yeah.
I can't even describe it. And it's
Yeah.
funny. And I noted here that first of all, it's a complex and lengthy song for them to
Yeah,
perform.
you gotta give it a listen. You gotta have patience, you know.
And it's one of the rare one take wonder song, right? So Alex Lifeson said Xanadu was well rehearsed before going to Rockfield. So I don't know, Chiefs, you
Right.
know how they kind of famously try to record songs in one take, like they try to avoid,
Yeah.
this is
They
one
don't want to do.
example of it. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
continue on hemispheres and ended there because they realized
Yeah.
it's just too difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Crazy.
So
Okay, so
next song. Um,
next song, you tell me. I got my notes scattered.
yeah. So the next one's
Cinderella
pretty
Man?
famous. And I will say, so
Oh,
just a
okay.
heads up, Cheech, Mrs.
Mhm.
Doubtfire. We have 7.5 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, this flew by. Okay, so we'll maybe we won't analyze the songs as much, but we
No, no,
could.
but if we can, let's put together Closer to the Heart, Cinderella Man, and Madrigal, right? These are the
Yeah,
shorter
yeah.
songs on the album.
Mhm. Okay.
Fantastic songs, definitely close to like Closer to the Heart was a top hit, right? It
Oh
brought
yeah, yeah.
pop rock success. And I think we were clearly saying that Closer to the Heart is philosophy in 2.5 minutes.
It's basically focusing inward instead of outward. You know, like what was going on. It was like Neil, I guess, was figuring the world was materialistic, and he felt like we should go inward and bring out our creativity and our talents, and in our individual personality. The blacksmith and all that stuff that we talked about earlier in the how's that line go? The blacksmith and the plowman,
And
or whatever.
well, one of the lines is and again, this song is actually really good. Like, don't let I feel like a lot of Rush fans brush over this song as
Oh, it's
since it's
amazing.
a little poppy rock, but I don't know if that's the case, but I feel as this song is probably one of the most important songs, both.
And it charted. It charted for them.
That's
Definitely.
the thing, it charted, and I love the line, the blacksmith and the artist reflected in their art. They force their
Yep.
creativity closer to the heart, right? And I love your take
Exactly.
on it. And I think I quickly said this. It also a lovely meditation on love, right? And not the
Yeah. Yeah.
romantic, but more like, you have love versus reason. All right.
Right.
You
Right.
said the outside is more, philosophers and the blacksmith. If they do things with love, that's the key. It's one of the secrets of life.
Exactly. And I would say Neil was definitely reading some Carl Jung on
Oh,
this one. And Alan Watts comes to mind, just my personal, for the Zen kind of thing. And then,
right.
all right, so we'll move along. What
Cinderella
was the
Man,
next?
Peach. You want to take that one?
Okay, yeah.
We have
Scylla,
about 5 minutes.
okay, Cinderella Man. It's about the underdog. To make just to, you know, Rush was the underdog,
Yeah,
and basically the underdog to the music industry. People didn't want to see him succeed. The critics did not want to see Rush succeed. And
fans
Cinderella Man is a
abandoned them at one point. The fans abandoned
oh
them.
yeah, yeah. They were
You know,
worried about that. It's a movie. about a boxer in the 1930s, how he rose from, poverty to a champion. And then Russell Crowe was in the remake. I recommend watching it. So basically, in a nutshell, it's about the underdog who comes to be the champion, you know, almost like a Rocky movie, boxing or whatever. But
And
like,
definitely probably the hardest rock song on the album. Kind of like that classic
um,
70s song. What do you think?
I think so. Oh yeah, definitely.
Very
Yeah,
short
it's
number.
heavy. Yeah.
It's short. And then next one, Madrigal. Madrigal.
Okay. Okay. That one it's a love song.
I was gonna say
Okay.
like probably the most romantic song in their
And
catalog.
it's explain which you called it, the Shakespearean.
So a madrigal was a type of prose, 16th, 17th century prose. So the song
Yeah.
is written in that style, and probably one of the most romantic songs.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
know, Metallica has Nothing Else Matters. Rush has Madrigal. You can
Yeah.
recommend Special
It's
Lady.
about the loss of a love lingering, and it's not done in a way like, and I brought up Boston, for example, where Brad Delp is singing, he's hurt bad by this girl named Marianne, and more than a feeling, Marianne is walking away, and it's not done like that. It's done in a Shakespearean way.
Yeah, very Shakespeare, like a sonnet.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, beautiful.
It's a great
And,
song. And finally, Cygnus, X1, Book One, The Voyage. And we have about three
yes,
minutes. We'll end here because this is actually a perfect segue into Hemispheres because they're going to create a
yeah,
sequel to the song, right?
definitely. So Cygnus X1 is basically uh Neil was reading Carl Sagan, and he read about black holes, about a spaceship traveling in space, and a black hole shows up and it goes through the black hole. Now the metaphor that I got is the individual is the black hole, I'm sorry, the individual is a spaceship, Rush is the spaceship, the black hole is the unknown, which is the record industry. They go through that, and what's going to come out on the outside, you know?
And that's
So,
significant because on Hemispheres, on the sequel to this song, right, in Cygnus X1 Book Two, they talk about, the play between, and it's no surprise that I think we talked about this on the album cover. There's a
yeah,
naked dude in Hemispheres, there's a naked dude.
naked guy. Yeah,
And it
yeah, yeah.
could be Starman, right? I love that interpretation.
I
And
definitely it is Starman. Looking at my picture, it definitely is
no,
Starman. I think, but
against what,
he's standing straight with his arms on his sides, not
right,
not holding out like that.
right. And he's on the creative side of the brain versus the more rational side.
Wow.
So
Okay,
that's something to look into. Yeah. So I love
that is
your
amazing.
interpretation.
That's an amazing call, and we'll
Your
talk about that episode.
your interpretation is good. And just the one final thing, I love that. And just so that's like the symbolic version. On the
Yeah,
surface, it's science fiction. If
of
anyone's
course.
ever seen the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, a bunch of astronauts
Yes, yeah,
investigate
that,
a black hole, or the movie Interstellar. So it's like Rush's
yeah,
version of that on the
exactly.
surface, right? But then symbolically, a
Hmm.
lot more is going on.
Yeah.
So
So how's the Mrs. Doubtfire?
1 minute.
Okay,
So any
so
last minute. Um,
if I get this in a minute, when I was 7 years old, I saw this on Christmas Day on Don Kirshner, and it blew my mind away. And Rush on Christmas Day during this period, it was mind blowing, and how a 7-year-old kid could get so much from that band, philosophy, musicality. It's amazing. And we could talk about this in the other episode. Will a 7-year-old kid watch something now and get that from an artist? That's the
as
question I put.
it's funny. I love, and we can talk. Yeah, that'll be like our opener for like our next
Yeah,
episode.
yeah,
Yeah, what would it's funny because you mentioned, for example, Taylor Swift, right?
yeah.
And the effect.
You mean Zena LeVay, right? Oh no, that's another story.
we got we got to talk.
Yeah, yeah,
That'll be the next episode. But
yeah.
yeah, no, I love that. Would if